Today I'm going to go over my favorite peaks in Southern California. I'm going to describe a little bit about each trail and what to expect. And I'm going to explain which one is my least favorite trail and which one is my favorite trail and why the very last one is my favorite trail. So I hope you enjoy this video. Now I will break each trail down. Number 5 is Mount Baden Powell. This is near Wrightwood, California. This hike is just under 8 miles round trip long and with an elevation gain of around 2,700 feet. This hike starts at the Vincent Gap Highway and contains multiple switchbacks on this hike. So this is a very difficult hike, but you do get amazing views of the mountain range of the San Gabriels. And then when you get to the top, you're going to find that there's a plaque up there. So basically, you pretty much just go through a switchback of pine trees on this trail. And then when you get to the top, you're going to see this pole right here. It has a bunch of stickers on it, and it goes up to the plaque right next to it. This is actually the second tallest peak on the list, behind San Antonio Peak. And the reason why I put this as number 5 least favorite is because even though it's a nice hike, it doesn't have a whole lot of water. Not a lot of streams, not a lot of waterfalls, but still a nice hike. So number 4, San Antonio Peak. So this hike is pretty cool because the first mile you're going to see a waterfall on the way up called San Antonio Falls. But this hike is very difficult. I took the 7 to 8 mile round trip version of this hike, and I believe it was nearly 4,000 feet of elevation gain. And when you work your way through the hike, you're going to see this hut right here, the ski hut, and it actually has a plaque right there as well. But the entire way up, it's just nothing but incline, elevation gain. This is by far the most difficult hike I've done, and I would say it's my number 4 favorite in SoCal. And when you make your way up the mountain, you're going to see a lot of these rocks. It kind of has a bit of an alpine look like the Sierra Nevadas do. And when you get to the very top, it's pretty wide, and they do have a plaque right there. Of course, you get the other side of the mountain range, and this is actually the tallest mountain in the San Gabriel mountain range, and the tallest mountain in LA County, and by far the most difficult one I've done so far. And this hike's very dangerous if you do it during the storm seasons. A lot of people have been injured and killed on this hike, so just be very careful. Number 3 on this list is San Jacinto Peak near Idlewood, California. So this hike, you actually need a permit to do it, and you can get it at the Stone Creek campground about a mile from the trailhead. And basically you just put your name, all your information, and then you take a copy of it, and then you take the other copy and you place it into this board right here. But the trailhead starts about maybe half a mile to a mile from where that's at. And this is around 11 to 12 miles round trip with an elevation gain of around 4,500 feet. So this trail is very difficult. I'm going to say it's probably the second most difficult hike on this list. But on this hike, you get amazing views of the valley and the desert, and you can see Palm Springs from a distance, and multiple lakes. And there are brief periods where you'll get a bit of a break on this hike when certain sections will flatten out briefly. And on the way to the hike, you're going to see this nice little cabin towards the summit. So this is actually a refuge for stranded hikers and people who are lost. They could just stay the night here. And when you make your way up there, you're actually going to see this nice little notebook where you could just put your name, the date, and stating that you were here. So this hike is a really nice hike. It's the tallest peak I've done so far, but I definitely recommend it. And of course, on the way up to the hike, there are a lot of creek crossings you're going to do. And when you get close to the summit, you are going to go over some of these boulders right here. So you will have to climb over a lot of rocks on the way to the peak or the summit. And you could actually make this a shorter hike by taking the tram. But when you get to the very top, you're going to see both sides of the mountain range. And this is actually a part of the San Bernardino National Forest. So they'd have a couple lakes down there from a distance. On one side, you're going to have Idlewild. On the other side, you're going to have Palm Springs. Pretty neat. Number 2 on this list is Ontario Peak. This is about 12 miles round trip with an elevation gain of nearly 4,000 feet. So this is actually the same trail that will take you to Cucamonga Peak. And it's a very beautiful trail. It's one of my favorite hikes to take to a peak. But once you get to this point, you're in the Cucamonga Wilderness, and you get just amazing views of the pines up in the mountains and scenic shots. And right here, you do kind of get this little bit of a cliff when you get to the peak. And when you get to the peak, sometimes you're going to be able to see the clouds depending on the day. But honestly, this is one of the most beautiful mountain hikes I've done so far. And that's why I put it as number 2 as my favorite. And it's pretty difficult. And I would probably say that it's probably the 3rd most difficult hike on this list. Or the 4th. And you could actually hit multiple peaks on this trail. Number 1, Cucamonga Peak. So you're going to reach this junction right here. And right before you make that turnoff to get to Ontario Peak, you're actually just going to go straight ahead instead of making that right that would take you to Ontario Peak. So Cucamonga Peak is by far my favorite mountain hike out of all the ones I've done in Southern California. And even though 50% of the trail is the same as the trail that takes you to Ontario Peak, I would say later on, there's one thing that probably separates this hike from that hike to Ontario Peak. And it's probably the end of the hike. But this hike on this side of the mountain range is a little bit more steep, and it's a little bit more scary compared to doing it from the side where it's on Ontario Peak. But when you make your way up, you get these amazing views of the San Gabriel Mountains and all these pine trees, and from a distance you could just see lakes from a distance. And you will get a little bit lost, so I'd recommend downloading the Trails app when you do this hike. And Cucamonga Peak, this is why it's my favorite peak right here, is this cliff right here at the end. This cliff right here is just it's just awesome. This is right here is what separates this peak from the other ones I've done, is just that cliff at the end. It kind of makes you feel like you're on top of the world. Yeah, I accomplished this, This is why Cucamonga Peak is my favorite mountain hike in Southern California, and why I'd recommend it if you want just beautiful views the whole way. And you get a lot of amazing mountain hikes in Southern California, regardless if you do Mount Baldy, whether you do Baden Powell, San Jacinto, Cucamonga Peak, or Ontario Peak. There's a lot of amazing trails in this area. So regardless of which one you do, I'm pretty sure you will be rewarded at the end with amazing views. And I definitely recommend each of these hikes. But if you're gonna do Mount Baldy, I'd recommend taking the longer route versus the shorter route, which is what I took, because you will actually be able to pace yourself more to the summit and won't tire yourself out as quickly. But yeah, these are amazing mountains. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe.